Are situated to my right. Nice one. Up the stairs and right again. The disabled access, you follow this way round. Don't leave it too long. It's a loop and it goes all the way round. The meeting today is open to the public and we will be streamed live and for subsequent broadcast via the Council's website. You should be aware that the Council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. Data collected during this webcast will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policy. By entering the meeting room, you are consenting to be filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Jenny. So I'm now going to ask members to introduce themselves. So I've already said I'm Councillor Karen McGowan and I'm chairing this meeting, and I'm also a Burley Ward councillor. So if I go this way.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Denise Fox and also Deputy Chair of this local area committee.
It's not working. Oh, it is. Good evening, I'm Councillor Tony Downing, Councillor for Mossborough Ward.
I'm Councillor Mick Rooney, IT challenged, and I represent Woodhouse Ward.
Hello, I'm Scott Ford. I'm Community Services Officer for the South East area.
Hi everybody, I'm Jane Falls and I'm the Local Area Committee Manager for the South East.
Councillor Brian Lodge, Member for Burley Ward.
Hello everyone, I'm Councillor Kevin Oxley from Mossborough Ward.
And I'm Councillor Jackie Satter from Woodhouse Ward.
And I'm Jenny Skeever from Democratic Services, just here to take the minutes.
Thank you. So before I proceed with the agenda, I'd just like to explain how tonight's meeting is going to run. We'll deal with formal business and apologies and declarations and the minutes of previous meeting first. Unfortunately, Burley School were unable to attend this evening, therefore the presentation of the certificates for taking part in the Good Parking Scheme will take place at a future meeting. We'll then move to the item of public questions and petitions. After this, there'll be a presentation from the Head of Service for Communities, Carl Malulay, around the work of the Council is undertaking to help support people with the cost of living crisis, and we'll have a presentation from Foodworks about the work they are undertaking. The Local Area Committee Manager and the relevant committee members will give an update on the community plan. And then we have a number of services and organisations present, and we'll be holding a market stall event with an opportunity for you to go through and speak to the relevant services, organisations and your local councillors, and that will all take place through along that corridor in the other room. So you've got an opportunity to ask personal questions of the relevant services. So now we'll go over for apologies.
We've received 4 apologies, Chair, from Councillors Curtis Crossland, Gail Smith, Paul Wood and Anne Woolhouse.
Thank you. Are there any exclusions of the public and press? I don't think there are. No. Anybody got any declarations of interest? Nope. Okay then. On to item 6 on the agenda, which is the previous minutes of the meeting. Sorry? No, we're done. So, is everybody happy with the minutes from the previous meeting? Yep. Thank you. So they've been approved. So we now move on to public questions and petitions. So I've received, let me just get them, 2 public questions from Glynis Chapman. So I'm going to read these out for the record. So question 1 was, what are the plans for the empty building on Streetfields Halfway, the old Knowle Hill Nursing Home? In the past year it has had a fire and cement lorries discharging wastewater down the drive, flooding the basement. I reported that myself. There are lots of worries locally regarding this. I have got a reply from Dermot Reader, the Project Manager, Housing Growth Delivery Service. You will recall from the brief note dated the 1st of July 2022 that following feasibility investigations, we have recommended the demolition of the existing building to enable a new built temporary accommodation facility of 25 units plus ancillary office space. The citywide housing service has committed to this being a women's only site, which will provide suitable and secure accommodation for its customers, in particular those fleeing domestic abuse. The site will have a 24/7 staff/security presence once in operation. A business case has been submitted to secure capital approval to proceed with the demolition, but we must still complete the appropriation from the People to Place portfolio. The demolition works will need to be tendered in line with the Council's procurement guidelines. Therefore, the current timetable for demolition is May to July 2023. In the meantime, I have been liaising with colleagues in property services and property facilities management to improve the security measures in place for the vacant building. Despite the screening, anti-climb measures and security cameras already in place, there are individuals clearly intent on entering the building or climbing on the roof. Therefore, the next step will be to consider a manned security presence on site. So that's question one. Yes, of course you can, Councillor Durnley.
I just wanted to add something to that, because we've been in negotiations, Councillor Gail Smith and Councillor Oxley and myself, and the building, because of the procurement process, is taking this time to do. But because of the vandalism that's been taking place, I, along with Clive Betts MP, have been onto the council's housing people and Dermot Reader himself to make sure that the security of this place is well secured, because there's been things thrown off the roof, people have been getting on the roof, and what we've said is we want some action there sooner rather than later. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I realise it's slightly unusual to sort of comment on an officer's response, and it's not within the area that I represent, but I think given what I've heard about the amount of vandalism and local disquiet that it's causing, it will cost an absolute arm and a leg to, as it sounds already, to safeguard and keep secure this site. And I really don't understand why it can't be knocked down now, because it's going to be knocked down anyway, and then we argue about what the cost of the transfer of it from, I think it's one part of the council to another, which seems absolutely bonkers to me. So I think they should knock it down and then argue about how they're going to transfer it.
Okay, I'm proposing that we take that suggestion forward and ask the officers the reason why not, as a local area committee.
Yeah. And see if it can be brought
forward. Yeah, I think Jenny's got that in the minutes now.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. So the second question raised by the same person, Glenys Chapman, was, as the current infant school is in the old building at the bottom of Station Road and the junior school is on street fields, we have lots of problems with parents having to use cars to collect children from both schools. It is a problem if you have a child in one school and another in the other school. Any thoughts on joining the schools which share a head teacher? So the reply again from Dermot Reader, Project Manager, Housing Growth Delivery Service. I have spoken to Cathy Tandy, Strategic Commissioning Manager in the People portfolio, regarding relocation of the infant school. Cathy has advised that there are currently no plans to relocate Halfway Nursery Infant School next to the junior school. The situation is that there is a great pressure on limited capital funds available, which are being used to A, support expansion proposals in areas of the city where we have a deficit of places, and B, support any rebuilding of schools in the city which will need to focus on condition first. I've also inquired with colleagues in housing strategy and property services, and there are no other accommodation proposals for this site. This is why it was previously declared surplus and it was being considered for disposal. Is there anything you want to add? Yes, Turner.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I got in touch with the Chair of Governors at Halfway Junior School, which is the school at the top of the hill, And this is the reply I got. I'd just like to read it out to you. Currently, schools have a temporary arrangement with the head of the junior school, acting as head across both schools. This will hopefully lead to a much closer working relationship going forward, but at the moment it is only temporary. Personally, I would love to see the two schools become a one-through school, but as neither site has a capacity to do this, that would involve a new building, and I can't see that happening in the near future. However, if the current arrangement is a success, it should help to standardise practice, and we are acutely aware of the issues faced by parents with children at both schools. Hopefully something can be done to help ease this, but whatever happens, I'm afraid in the immediate term, we will still need both current sites. But that's not to say it's not going to happen. Further down the line, a few years down the line, this might be a possibility. But at the moment, with the funding with the cuts of funding that the council have sustained, it's not going to be possible for a while. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So that's the questions that we've received in advance. I've now got Michael Meredith, who just wants to read out your question. Would you like to come to the microphone? Okay.
It's too complicated.
Yeah.
Part of the thing, it's with parliamentary ombudsman, with the High Court, so it's quite the thing. No council will be through with it at all.
Okay.
We don't like councils.
Okay, thank you for that, and thank you for bringing it to our attention, and we'll make sure that we get the answers for you. Okay, thank you. I've also got, I've lost my piece of paper now. Is it Jane and Sharon from, is it Friends of Claire? Somebody, yeah? Would you like to come to the microphone, please? I've got some.
We'd just like to say, myself and Sandra, we're here tonight. Thank you to members of the LAC for passing on the data we presented at the last LAC meeting. A couple of weeks after the meeting, the last LAC meeting, we had an email from Kate Josephs to say that the local wildlife site panel, sorry I'm losing my voice, were meeting and that the designating of Althorpe Fields was on the agenda. Following that LWS meeting and the issuing of the meeting minutes a few weeks later, we found out that the remaining areas had been granted local wildlife site status, and as you can imagine, we were all thrilled to bits. So, now we're waiting to hear if our green spaces application was successful, and are keeping everything crossed that the housing allocation will have been removed in the new local plan. So there's only really one question, that is, do you know when that draft plan will be issued, please? And again, thank you for all your input last time.
I think Councillor Brian Lodge is going to comment on that.
I think it's just about the local plan. It's going through the process at the moment. It's going to take some time before it becomes adopted, but it's going through the process for consultation, and it then goes out for formal consultation and things like that. So if it's not in there, I can't see it being put back in, but it's going through the process now.
Yeah, I think it's coming to the next local area committee in January. I think that will be the topic, the local plan. So don't hold me to that. That's on
Formal adoption can take longer than that.
Yeah, it's a consultation process that's starting, and that's what we're going to do at the next local area committee. Yeah.
I'd just like to say we had a good meeting with some friends groups and some people along the Waterthorpe corridor, which eventually will link up to the one that Claire has just mentioned. We had a good meeting, on-site meeting, and everything looks very positive. And we've got a guy from Hull University who's leading on it, a guy called Patrick Harrison. And so anyone that wants to get involved in that project, I'm sure if you get in touch with Claire, she will welcome you into that project with open arms. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tony, for stealing my thunder on a piece that I'm talking about.
Oh, sorry.
Right, so that's all the questions we've received. What I'm going to ask now is one more. Is James Walker in the audience? Would you like to read your questions?
Hi everyone, so this is my first time here. I wasn't really expecting to get up and ask a question. So my question to the committee is what, if any, are the plans to improve active travel within the South East area? So active travel is basically a way of us reducing the congestion, and for me, I find it really frustrating to sit in traffic, so I think it's really important that we can work towards reducing the traffic on our roads. And one of the main ways that has been achieved around the world is to improve buses, trains, walking facilities and cycle routes. Things to consider for this would be to improve or to implement school streets, improving the bus services, allocating road space towards cycle lanes. Also for the police force, the Southwest MPT, to do something like a close pass operation to make the roads a bit safer for people who ride bikes. Lower waiting times at pedestrian crossings, inclusion of better zebra crossings across the eye lines so that people can get around their area by walking more efficiently, and improving the cycle safety, specifically at tram tracks. I think the trams are great, but it does pose a real issue. We have had a recent near fatality up at Gleedless of a cyclone hitting the tram lines and being run over, sort of incident, and there's 2 in the 1 week, so they would be the points that I'd like to understand.
Thank you, and I know you've met with our MP Clive Betts already about the tram tracks and the issues there. Jane, do you want to give an update on some of those?
So within our community plan, we've got 3 themes, and second theme's environment, and I don't know if you've had a chance to have a look at it, but active travel is in there. We started to look at this the meeting that Tony was actually talking about last week, where we could potentially look at it, not necessarily on the roads, but cycle paths and linking up sort of like through the city. So it is in its infancy at the minute.
One of the officers want to come in as well.
Okay, yeah. So what we are in the process of doing is setting up that initial meeting to sort of work that through and tease that through for the South East. So I'll let Matt come.
Good evening, everybody. Matt Reynolds, Transport Planning and Infrastructure Manager at Sheffield Council. So like the gentleman, I wasn't expecting to come and speak tonight either, but I'll answer the question. It's a very good one. It's certainly within our thoughts for the area, for the reasons why you explained previously. So we have our general kind of LTP, local transport plan improvements, which are things like crossings and things like that. They are going in this area. Actually, there's quite a lot of stuff, and we're at the back today, so someone come and talk to us about it if you want to later on in the evening. Supertram is an amazing asset for the city and something we should be proud of. Whenever I say that, I look to people from Leeds and think, well, we've got one, you haven't, sort of a thing. But as part of that, we're going through a process of how do we make that better, how do we make more people use it. And a big thing which I've identified through a piece of work is how do we connect it into these residential areas. It could be the case of just providing something like a pedestrian crossing along those desire lines, which the gentleman mentioned. These are quick wins and something which we need to explore, and we are exploring. In addition to that, there's park and ride facilities. We're looking to improve the halfway park and ride, as well as the station road crossing, which I'm pleased to say through intervention on this panel, that is now in. That is a connection into the super tram network, providing that link, which was a severance across Station Road, which coincidentally also works with Halfway Infant School as well. So that's a good example of how we're all working together. We've recently been given the go-ahead from government. You might have seen it in the news, about £570 million for the region, of which Sheffield is over £100 million. Within there is an over programme. So, for layman's terms, if we bring our projects in under budget, we have an element in there safeguarded for an active travel infrastructure network for Mosborough. Now, it might be the case that we just do the design work on that one and not actually do the physical build, but at least it's in our back pocket so we can respond to future bids, which is obviously puts Sheffield in a very good competitive position to start bringing in that funding. School streets programmes, we have them across the city. I will have to double check, but if you leave your details I can find out which ones are in this LAC area. But that's essentially where we work with schools, like the safer parking programme, which is happening here. A great example of how the schools work with the local authority and the residents to promote kids being active, walking to school, and hopefully get them in the mindset of not being dropped off everywhere and bringing it into their behaviour, which I think is a very positive statement for the future. I think at that point I'll just leave it. Is that okay?
That's been really helpful.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Stop a minute.
Yes, Councillor.
Number 27 Gloucester Avenue. It's been cut.
Can I just have a word?
We don't
Yeah,
run
yeah.
buses.
You probably have seen us in Crystal Peaks and in other places around the city collecting signatures. The government there's going to be a 30% cut across South Yorkshire of buses, because as most of you will remember, we had a first-class bus service in Sheffield pre-1986, and then it was then taken out of the local authorities' hands and put into the hands of private operators. And now they've got to a point where they're saying they can't afford to run the services. So we are appealing to everybody to sign this petition. Let's get it down to Westminster. Let's get a bus service like they've got down there, because it never happened in London. They wouldn't have it down there. So we want our buses back, and that is the idea, to get the petition in, and let's see where we go with that. But the bus service in Mosborough, I have to say, is appalling. And Clive Betts says we've been working along with Oliver Coppard in trying to improve that. But obviously, that's, again, they're out of our hands. We don't run the buses. We've got a bus partnership, but I'm afraid, in my opinion, the teeth in the bus partnership is not very good. And we're reliant on these bus operators to come with us. But at the moment, it's not happening, and I don't think it will. But as I say, this is what we're trying to achieve, and the more people that we get to sign this petition and get it down to Westminster, and let's see where we go with that.
Thank you. No.
So as Tony said, the buses are not within the council's control. We run the roads, but not the public transport. That's the Transport Authority, and that's Oliver Coppard, who's Mayor for South Yorkshire. But what Tony has alluded to is that we have a bus partnership, and actually Terry Fox, who's leader of the council, is very good at pressing for those meetings to happen, and he's got the bus operators to come in and explain themselves. So there are conversations going on in both the political and the officer sphere to try and get that sorted. From our perspective, we want a bus service which works for the people of Sheffield, obviously, because that's all part of that bigger picture.
Thank you. I've got somebody, Claire, at the back. You wanted to?
There's a petition here, she said.
No, it's online. Is it
Yeah,
online?
no, yeah, go on. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll share it with you afterwards. All right.
Just two brief comments. You probably may well be aware, but the only place where the buses weren't deregulated was London. Everywhere else was deregulated, and there's a reason for that. And again, you may or may not know, but the recent Crossrail system that was built in London was £3 billion overspent. What could we possibly have done round here with that sort of money? So that's the sort of thing you have to bear in mind when they talk about levelling up and things like that in Westminster.
Thank you. So I'm going to now open for any further questions from the floor. If you're coming up to answer a question, can you make sure you use the microphone so that everybody can hear? Can you clearly state your name and which area you're from? And if we're unable to give you an answer tonight, we will get you a written answer to your question if you leave your contact details with us. So has anybody got any questions that they want to ask? Yes, this gentleman here first. If you'd like to come up to the microphone, please.
Have got any ideas about Peel Holdings with the airport, Sheffield and Doncaster Airport? What I'm meaning by that is Peel Holdings want to close it down. Does the council know whether any developers have offered millions to develop the site, and is that the real reason? Sorry about that.
I know there's been a lot of.
Oliver Coppard's dealing with that one.
I know there's been a lot of work being done in the background by all South Yorkshire councils, but Brian, do you want to come in?
Yeah, it's something more for the Combined Authority and the Mayor Oliver Coppard's leading on it. But I know from reading in the press that Doncaster have put restrictions on planning in that area, so it's not that they could develop it for other things. I think it's protected for a number of years for aviation purposes, or business connected purposes connected with aviation. But it's one for the Combined Authority and Doncaster, well, City now, aren't they? Doncaster Council, City Council, because it falls in their boundaries, really.
The question was asked in House of Parliament, and what's her name, Liz Truss, was asked the question about whether she would support Doncaster and Sheffield Council, and she says she's fully supportive. So the thing is, what I'm saying is, she said it, is anybody in the council chasing it up?
It does, because it's not in Sheffield.
Well, the point
it's Doncaster Sheffield Airport, it's Finningley, it's in the Sheffield City region, which is the South Yorkshire Mayor. So it falls into their sort of remit.
We closed Sheffield Airport down to join in with Doncaster, so it does affect, it is part of ours. We joined in with Doncaster when we closed Sheffield Airport. So the thing is, my thoughts with it, should it be taken out of Peel Properties thing, be nationalised, or, taken out of Peel Properties thing? I think they're looking to make a few $100 million out of the thing.
It's one. If it's nationalised, it's the government to deal with. If it's going to be compulsory purchase, it's Doncaster Council. We, as Sheffield City Council, obviously give feedback into the mayoral authority and through members on there. But it doesn't actually fall within our remit in Sheffield, really. So we can advise and submit our concerns and talk about it with the Combined Authority. But that's about as far as our sort of powers over the airport go, really.
One thought on levelling up, would it be a good idea to ask the government whether they'll cancel the third runway at Heathrow and develop Sheffield Doncaster Airport instead?
Okay.
Just to try.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you. There was someone else that got their hand up. Yes, would you like to come out and... If you could say your name and where you're from, that would be helpful. Thank you.
My name is Helen Harrison and I live on Meadowgate Avenue. I'm here because we've had a letter about the proposed Rother Valley traffic scheme. The letter advised us to come to this meeting tonight, but I'm looking at this agenda and I can't see anything that seems to be discussing the proposed Rother Valley traffic scheme. So, are you discussing it, or am I here under false pretences?
No, I don't know who sent the letter out, because I don't live in that area. So
right. The letter's
seen the
come
letter.
from...
But I would say, if it's highways are here, so yes.
Richard Baker, Strategic Traffic Sustainability and Infrastructure in the City Growth Department.
So Matt, that's not the person who sent the letter, but Matt's here from that department. Afterwards, we'll be having sessions where...
So we have to wait to discuss it on a one-to-one basis with him. It's not going to be out to the general meeting.
I mean, how many people have come tonight for this one particular reason? Right, okay, so there's two. So it would be... don't want to close it down and nobody else is here. I just wanted to know how many want to. So if afterwards, if you could have that conversation, that would be really helpful. Okay. The actual theme tonight is cost of living crisis. So, okay, so...
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry if that was misleading, the letter, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to get the answers that you're wanting. Yeah. And
Yeah, you can go to...
Sorry, he's calling me down.
I was going to say, if you wanted to listen to the rest of the meeting, we have got breakouts afterwards, but it's up to you. Okay. Anybody else got a question before we go into a couple of presentations? Yes, Richard, if you want to come to the microphone.
Can everybody hear me at the back? I sent this email to you guys earlier, but I'd like to, a few days ago, to my local councillors, that's Brian, Karen, Denise. I just wonder what the Sheffield City Council and local councils here are going to do to play their part to put a stop to the UK's government's attack on nature. Recently, the Wildlife Trust, RSPB, National Trust and others have warned that the recent announcement of the new planning and infrastructure law and investment zones, so-called, represent the weakening of protections that safeguard our already beleaguered wildlife whilst putting our most precious local wildlife sites, like Althorpe Fields, at threat from bulldozers and concrete. This is in addition to the new retained EU law bill where the UK government threatens to tear up the basic wildlife protections we have relied upon for years. So basically, as you're probably all aware, they wanted to rip up all these regulations to make sure that, it's all about growth at the expense of absolutely everything else. And I just want to get a feeling, you can write to me later if you want, what Sheffield City Council are going to do to make sure that we don't suddenly start trampling all over our wildlife, which is already in danger, with these so-called investment zones. So I don't know whether anybody's got any thoughts on that.
Brian just wants to quickly, sorry Richard, Brian wants to quickly just answer the question, but we will get you a written response as well.
Great. Yeah, I have actually forwarded to officers to ask for information to get you a response.
I just thought while I was here,
I
make people aware of what's happening and how terrible it is.
Yeah, but the issue around the enterprise zones and planning, that is a concern because that's removing some of the planning controls that local authorities have. And I know many councils up and down the country have expressed concerns about this because it seems to take away that local control, which is what we always say in planning. It's the local team, it's the local people that know. So we always deal with that in that way. But it's still very early on from what they announced. So, it's a headline announcement, but we haven't got the details coming through yet in all these things. It sort of unfolds over a period of time. The way government make announcements, I'm afraid. But I've sent your email on and asked for a response I can send back to you, so I'll get that back to you as soon as I get it as well.
Thank you, Brian. Sorry, thank you, Brian. Councillor McCann.
Chair. Part of the response is I'm on the planning board, which I've mentioned before. It's a very frustrating board to be on because the amount of control we as local council have now is diminishing literally by the day. I'm exaggerating a bit, but it really is terrible. I mean, I'll give, for instance, Althorpe Fields. Mr. Meredith put a question in here, and it does state on here that Peter Bottomley, MP, asked Liz Truss to intervene in regard planning inspectorate undermining decisions made democratically by elected members of his constituency. PM Liz Truss explained that the planning inspectorate should not overrule decisions by local councils. Now, the planning inspectorate completely ignored Sheffield City Council's response to that application, as the Althorpe Fields Action Group will tell you. And my fear is it's getting worse. It really is absolutely appalling what we have to put up with. Essentially, when we go to these planning boards, and Tony will tell you, effectively, whatever officers recommend, we have to agree with. That's it. Because if we disagree with it, it goes to planning inspector, they don't like it, it gets chucked into touch. And what we've said has got totally ignored. Okay. So I'll just say, watch this space, it's not getting any better.
We've got now 2 presentations, so to keep us on track, if you're okay, because I know a lot of people have come for the cost of living crisis. I've got a presentation from the on the cost of living crisis by, I'm going to call you councillor then, Carl Maloolan, and we've also got a representative from the Food Works here. Yeah, hi, thank you. That'll continue straight afterwards. So over to you, Carl.
Yeah, so good evening everybody again. So I'm delivering this presentation on behalf of one of my colleagues today, so I will try and answer any questions as a result of this as best I can, but I think it's really important that we sort of give you an update of the work that the Council is doing in response to the crisis at the moment. So as I've just touched on there, I think we all realise now how significant the impact is of the cost of living crisis and how it's impacted on parts of the city. So what we're looking to do is bring people together as a council. We want to work with partners and with our communities to focus our efforts on the steps we need to make sure that we can deal with this crisis. So in particular, we're looking at the impact it's having on routine day-to-day income and expenditure for decisions on households. So we're looking at the impact it's having on households in the city. So in response to this, we're looking to create a package of support to provide all guidance available to people, and that's financial, fuel and food for anybody who's facing hardship, with statutory and non-statutory provision to anyone in need. So we're looking at the whole sort of approach of what we need to do to deal with this. So what we started doing, and some of you may be aware that when the sort of pandemic hit, we adopted like an incident management approach, and that's how we're dealing with this cost of living. We're treating it with the highest priority, and we've got the structure in place to deal with that as a city. And as the local area committee, the councillors and officers working in that field are critical in that role. What we've done is we've set up some delivery plan work streams, so looking at what are the key themes that people need to sort of focus on to try and deal with this. Most important, I think, is communication and getting information out there of what's available, which I'll come to talk about later. Thinking about providing direct support, which we can do as a council, but also indirect support. We're looking at what information and intelligence is available to us, so we can pull that together and sort of that we can sort of direct the work that we need to do. And then we're responding to what matters specifically to different groups and different communities. So we're not saying a one-size-fits-all. We're trying to gather that intelligence to look at what it is that we need to do in different parts of the city. Ultimately, what we want to do is support people away from the crisis. We know as a country, it's not only individuals and households, but local government and businesses across the board. Everybody's suffering and being hit by the impacts what's happening in the economy. So what we're trying to do is make people self-sufficient as much as possible and not reliant on the services. So we're looking at longer-term financial stability, thinking about advice, make sure people are accessing the right support and welfare where they need to do that, look at employment support and access to food where that's required. As a council, you'll know that we're a big landlord in the city, so we're looking at our approach to how we support council tenants and also other bills that people may owe to us, things like council tax, and trying to make sure we're dealing with that approach really. So it's really important we're trying to look at it as a whole as Sheffield City Council. So we've come up with an approach that we're going to undertake, which we've classed as neighbour good, and that's about welcoming spaces. So as we come into October, and we know that autumn and winter are going to be particularly challenging, we're bringing together our package of support to reach out to Sheffield as a city. So we're creating these welcoming places, which we're badging as neighbour good, which are going to provide convenient spaces for people to access, to help, just to call in, get a warm, have a cup of tea, have a chat in some of these places in their local community. So that's the approach that we're looking to take. What we're looking to is, and I touched on the intelligence that we want to get, so we're looking to make sure that we're getting the knowledge out there of existing venues and then offering more, so looking at where we can support some of those local amenities to actually deliver more longer hours or different days that they currently wouldn't be open, so that people can access that support when they need it. So we've done this in support with the voluntary group, so Voluntary Act in Sheffield, the voluntary community faith sectors, and what we're looking to do is producing like a printed copy and digitally shareable product to support people. So initially that's going to be for frontline workers, so they'll be able to signpost people, longer term I'll come on to what we're going to do for actual residents. And what we're looking to do is simplify the key resources. So there's hundreds of things out there. So we're trying to break that down so it's easy and understandable for people. And it provides information via shareable click on a link. So if you've got an email, we can send things out to people. Or we're going to have some QR codes that people can also access where take a photo, you've seen that many of you before in other places where, and that will signpost you. And again, I'll give you an example of that later. So like I say, the first product we're producing is the digital and the print for frontline workers. Then we're going to get something in place for public facing for people to access. And the third thing we're going to be looking at doing is having in places where what we're calling these welcoming spaces, we'll have a sticker in there that will make people aware of that it's a place that they are welcome and can go and access basic needs. Thinking about the brand that we're trying to do, we're trying to bring together all the participating organisations with whatever the offer is available. So some things won't be available in every area, so we want to keep it simple with the neighbourhood sticker. But what we want people to know is it's a warm, safe space, they're welcome to go, and the key thing is we want it to be without judgment. We know that there can be certain stigmas attached to certain things, so we're trying to make sure that it's not blatantly obvious that people are going into these places because they can't afford to turn the heating on, they can't afford to eat, and we're trying to make sure that it's sort of approachable for people to do it in that way. So we're trying to make sure that people aren't sort of badged by going into these places. But using that neighbourhood sticker, we'll be able to use that to identify participating venues in the welcoming spaces at any time. So the guidance will be different, so some places will offer activities. Some places it will be just getting a cup of tea and a warm and maybe having a chat to people or services that are there. Might be things like libraries can't offer things like a cup of tea, but they may be able to have people there that can speak. So we're looking at the whole range of services that we can access. And what we're looking at doing is potentially having some of our own officers based in some of these spaces. So if you know that somebody's going to be there from a certain team, it might be that you can have a chat with them, they might access, and that's one of the strands that we're also looking at is supporting our employees, because you'll probably be aware, some of you may be employees yourself, where we've got a number of lower paid employees who may also struggle financially, so we're making sure that we're offering for them options to make sure that we're there supported to deal with the cost of living crisis too. Okay, so a bit of a timeline, and some of these things are ongoing. So we're producing some postcards, and they will start to be distributed to frontline workers imminently. So that was signed off last week. So we're going to get that out to staff on the front line so they can start advising and supporting people. We've now briefed to the site, so we've got some places already raring to go. So we've got 11 libraries in the city, some SCC run, some volunteer run, obviously. We know we've got some in this LAC area. We've got family centres again, and these 7 sites will cover Sheffield. We've got the Moor Market, which is centrally situated, and we already have a presence there through the vaccination offer. And then we're looking at the community support helpline. So that's the sort of things that's already in train and that's ready to go. Longer term, the second phase is more around the things for the people. So we've actually had a survey through Citizen Space and looking at mapping out the existing provision to see what's actually out there. Again, that's about gathering the intelligence. So that survey closed earlier this week, and we're currently in the process of pulling together all that information to upload it onto the Cost of Living website, which we're looking to launch on the 17th of October. So that will be phase 2, and that will where people can actually access this information and get more detail about what it is that they may need to access to support and to help them through this crisis, really. And what we're going to do is we're going to monitor the impact throughout this, so we've got a team of people who are looking at this and making sure that anything that we're putting in place that we need to adapt or change, that we're going through that. So, just to finish off then, we've got some examples of the postcard there. So the first half of that is the sort of looking about warm and friendly places. So we've got there 4 different QR codes, one for help and advice on money issues, one for the community support helpline, one for citizens advice, and one for the cost of living guide. So again, if you scan that with your a smartphone or every device you've got, you'll be able to access that, and we'll have links to that too. And then the other side is around places to go. So where can I go in my local area? So thinking about the family centres, which we touched on, the libraries, volunteer community and faith centres, and also a bit of information about how we can help you. So we're trying to make it as simple for people as we can. We will learn as we go. You know, we're working at pace with this. We know it's going to impact on communities, and hopefully people here today who may be impacted, we're hoping that you can go away and spread the message of the work that we're doing and get out there. Because what we've really got to do is make sure people know that there is support and help available we don't want people to suffer through this. So, like I said, we're working really hard, and we want to work with yourselves as community, people in the community to sort of try and take this forward, really. And that's it. That's the end of my presentation. So I hope that was helpful.
Thank you, Carl. What we'll do now is have the next presentation, then if anybody's got questions about all of it. So it's Rennie Mayer? Yep, thank you. Have you got a presentation or... Yeah, it's... You'll need a microphone. Yeah, if you sit at that microphone, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, oh, that sounds good, yeah. Hi, hi everyone, I'm Renee from Foodworks. Just want to say a bit about Foodworks and then hopefully also a bit about what we're hoping to do in the months ahead to sort of deal with the all the stuff that's coming our way. So, am I pointing? Oh yeah, cool. So Foodworks really is about trying to create a better food system. At the moment, the food system we have is destroying the planet. I think it's all becoming very real after a summer where we were facing 40-degree heat. I didn't enjoy that. But also, actually, the food system we have at the moment doesn't feed everybody, and that should really be the very least we should be expecting of our food system, I would think. Part of the problem we think that feeds into all this is this consumerist approach to our life and our society, where basically we're taught to take what we want and give as little as we can and sort of optimize every transaction in life for our personal benefit. So we want to try and change that. We want to make a food system that nourishes the planet and takes care of the world that we live in, and a food system that feeds everybody. And we think that the way to do that is to create a different approach to dealing with our shared resources, that is more focused on community, and the principle that you can take what you need if you can contribute what you can. So we try and source food in lots of different ways that we feel make a positive contribution to the planet. Our roots are in being a food waste organisation. That's still a real big part of what we do. So in May, which is the last time I did the numbers, we collected 70 tons of food that businesses would have otherwise wasted. But we have actually also started to be much more active in growing local food in lots of different ways. We have our own plots where we grow food ourselves, but we're also partnering with amateur growers with allotment societies to use spare space or extra courgettes that keep popping up in this season to basically feed that all into the system, no pun intended, so that we can use it to feed people. So at the moment, every month, we run 2 community cafes. At the moment they're in Sharrow in the Community Forum and in the Zest Centre in Upperthorpe. We support for 1,500 cafe visits, people who can have a social meal. We also produce ready meals, you can see at the bottom left, called Just Meals. And we give out boxes of shopping, essentially like a veg box but different, in our market in Handsworth. So overall, on an annual basis, we do about 2 million meals worth of food across the city. And because we actually do that under community model, none of this is really reliant on charitable funding. So going forward, all these things are going to come under massive pressure. All of this really is people in Sheffield coming together to contribute into this system what they can and hopefully get out of it what they need. And that's actually been not straightforward but remarkably successful, because we've only been here for 7 years and we are now probably the biggest provider of food in this way in the entire city. So we thought we should really try and figure out how we play our role in the city in the times ahead. And one of the things, does this work? Yeah, it just works. One of the things that we thought we might be able to do is to scale up the production of our meals. So the meals you can see in the bottom left, we started to do these over lockdown. and because of the lockdown it was very difficult for people to get around the city and maybe, for instance, get to the 3 hubs that we have to access food. We started working with other community organisations as sort of access points for the meals that we cooked for people. And that was really successful because it was a really nice way to get into lots of local communities where we didn't necessarily have a presence, where we didn't necessarily know the people. And it felt like a really valuable partnership to sort of let the community organisations that know the local area engage with the people there. But not every community organisation is a professional food organisation. There's a lot that goes into that, and it's not straightforward to deliver that. And that's actually the bit that we do well, and we have been doing for a while. So it's a great partnership where we can offer food to an organisation who wants to engage with people locally and support people locally. So we've had conversations with the council, which have been really positive about trying to roll this out across the city and to try and get at least one access point in every ward in the city for these meals. So like all our food, all this food is available on the basis of a flexible donation, so you pay what you can afford in exchange for the food. That's really the basis of it. So yes, we are basically hoping to find a community organisation in every ward to make these meals available to people. Council have also agreed to give us some facilities to support that. So you'll need you'll need a freezer to keep the meals. You might want a microwave to reheat meals if you want people to be able to have a warm meal in the community space that you're hosting. So there's some funds available so we can help organisations set up without any barriers or any cost to them. So yes, that's basically what we've just started, and actually the first organisation that might go live with this is actually in this area, because that will be the community centre in Westfield. So I think we're delivering the first 200 meals to them next Tuesday. Is that right, guys? Yes. But it'd be great to get more organisations, link that in as well to what was sketched earlier about sort of the network of welcoming spaces. Like it'd be great, obviously, if a lot of those spaces don't just give people a cup of tea or give people some warmth and a conversation and advice, but if there can be a food offer as well, that'd be great. And if we can do that basically in any space, if it's got a plug socket for a freezer, you basically have a food offer. So yeah, that's it in short, I suppose. So I'll just shut up, I think.
You don't get away that easy.
Rennie, thank you very much for that.
Yes.
Really, really appreciate all the work you do. Fantastic work. Rennie's going to be, we've got, afterwards, like I say, we're going to break out and there's going to be stations for everybody to ask questions. So Rennie will be here, so if you do want to offer any space or work, see how we can support each other, he'll be there, you can have that one-to-one conversation, okay? Just going to move on to the next item because I want to get through business so that you can all get out there and ask everybody the questions that you've probably come to ask them tonight. So, on to the final topic now, which is Jane's going to give us, Jane Folds, our LAC service manager, is going to talk about the community plan, and then some of the councillors are just going to give you an update of where we're up to. So over to you, Jane. Okay,
thank you, Karen. Hi, everybody. So I just wanted to give you a brief update of where we were with the community plan. So for those of you that have been before, we went through what was in our plan. Just a very brief overview is this was through consultation that had taken place with the community and subsequent workshops and sessions. Just to recap very briefly, the 3 themes that came out and that are in our plan are based on transport and highways, environmental issues and community safety and crime. So I'm just going to go over just a brief overview, and then the relevant councillors that have been working on the specific projects will give you a further update. So within transport and highways, we specifically had projects around the good parking scheme. Previously, at our last meeting, we had a school that came and we gave them presented with certificates. So we've currently got 6 schools that are within that scheme, and the Sustainable Communities officers working with a local area committee and the schools, and they go out and work with the local pupils about what is good parking and what isn't. I suppose it's to teach the parents where they should and shouldn't park. So we've also, within Transport and Highways, one of the key things that came out was around speeding vehicles. So we've undertaken a speeding review, and one of the councils will report back on where we are with that, and subsequent speed watch projects. Within the plan, I was interested to see your question, we have got to look at and improve active travel. We're at the very infancy of that, as we mentioned earlier. So anybody that wants to be part of that, please feel free to come and give your name, and we'll include you in those groups. We're also looking at the open accessibility of estates. I think someone mentioned that buses, as we're not dare I mention it, have been cut. So it's not just necessarily transport into town, it's also across the south east area. So we're starting to look at what community facilities are available and whether we can get involved in that and support that further. And then what we've already done, I suppose, which tallies in with the speeding vehicles, is as a local area committee we installed what's called vehicle activation signs, VASs, in hotspot areas in each of the wards, and they've already gone in place. There's one in each ward and they'll be rotated round. So on the environmental theme, the specific themes that we were looking at in there was to develop a core environmental project group for the South East, and that was to develop local environmental projects. I'm not going to steal Karen's thunder on that, but we've started underway with that.
Tony has.
Sorry?
Tony already has.
Tony already has, okay. And then the other things that we're looking at is around to develop a sponsor a street initiative. There's the litter and dog fouling project, community recycling schemes, and then what we've also done is we received £57,000 to spend on fly tipping within the area. So we worked with obviously the local councillors and the local services to identify what the hotspot areas were, and we're currently looking at what measures we can put in place. So we've got 5 identified areas within the South East, so what measures we can put in place to stop fly tipping. Around community safety and crime, one of the key things in there was around tackling social isolation. What came out of that was a perceived fear of crime, but when we dug deeper into that, it was actually that people felt isolated, and particularly through COVID, they didn't want to go out, they'd got used to not going out, and just seeing youth on the street corner it put them at fear. A lot of the local groups had ceased through COVID, so one of the things that we did was we were approached by one of the local forums to see whether or not we could increase and help and support the mother and toddler groups within the South East. The number decreased dramatically. I think it had gone down to about 10. So we provided some funding, and we're working with the local Woodhouse Forum to help increase those. So they currently, I think they've increased 1 within each ward, and the aim is within a 12-month period that each ward will see an increase of around 3. So that'd be 12 across them all. Also within the community safety and crime, we've been working with our local colleagues within the South Yorkshire Police to tackle off-road biking, which was a massive issue that was raised. So you will see, if you live in certain parts, that we've undertaken a poster campaign along with our colleagues from the police. So the posters are up there with the QR codes that are on there to make it easy for people to report. I will say that in some of the areas they have been taken down, not by us, so we're looking at how we can stop that or make it much more difficult, but we're on with that. And then we've also undertaken a lot of work with, or we're starting to undertake work with our youth and our younger residents within the area, because we've found from the consultation that really the amount of people that were below 30 that responded back to our surveys was really, really low. I don't want to steal the thunder from one of our colleagues on here around the Youth Council, so I'll save that for there. So it's just to say really that we are really moving on with some of the projects quite a way. Some of them, like I've said, are at the infancy. If anybody wants to be part of these projects, I know we've said that at previous meetings, And thank you to the ones that have come forward and are part of the environmental group and the youth group. But anything else, please come and see either myself or any of the local committee members, and we will take your names. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. So how we've worked it is that some councillors have taken a lead on some of the project areas, and so I'm just going to ask them to give an update on what they've been working on. So Tony's the first one for highways.
Thank you, Karen. I just wanted to update you on the Mosborough speeding review and how we are taking things forward. We held a meeting of the residents panel, that was a public meeting, on the 17th of June this year, attended by local councillors, MP Clive Betts, Police and Crime Commissioner Alan Billings, highways officers. It was agreed that highways officers would undertake a speed survey in the locations identified, and this work is currently being undertaken. Now schools are back. Another residents' panel meeting will take place at the end of October, early November, to update on the actions agreed at the previous meeting and to discuss the options identified by the highways officers from the speeding review they will have undertaken. We are set to launch the speed review for the remaining 3 wards, Burley, Woodhouse, Bayton in November. We now have speed guns. We now have the speed gun, and officers are in process of setting up sessions at locations identified with local councillors in each ward. Members of the public will be invited to attend these sessions along with the police officers and councillors. These sessions have started in all wards, and the police have issued warning letters and been reported to the Safer Camera Partnership. VASs, vehicle activated signs. Each ward has been allocated a new vehicle activation sign. Ward councillors were asked to nominate hotspot areas for the VAS to be placed. The VAS will be rotated around the ward to these areas every 6 to 8 weeks. The VAS, as well as indicated travelling speeds of vehicles, also collate and the data and identify times, numbers of vehicles, etc. This will allow us to work with other agencies to target the areas in the at the relevant times. Active travel is something that someone touched on earlier, and we are now starting to look at areas where we can encourage and develop active travel. We have set up a meeting with the transport planning and infrastructure teams to progress this further. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tony. Just something I just want to touch on that I found out yesterday, that we thought one of our VASs isn't working in our ward, and the officers have come back to say if you're driving at the correct speed, it doesn't flash. So it's only if you're going over. So people think they're not working, and they are, but that just proves that you're going at the right speed.
There's a difference. There's the VASs and then there's the speed indication signs, the old ones.
Yeah, the new ones don't flash if you're driving under the speed limit. Okay, so switch myself off. The next one's me. Just that I've been leading on some of the environmental issues. So did a walkabout last Friday, looking at the Waterthorpe Green corridor, and some of the actions from that meeting, which was a really good meeting, was the setting up of a Friends of Ockerdike group for the corridor project. This project will include installation of benches, notice boards, signage and pond excavation, and increase community engagement, as well as the installation of a memorial plaque and bench for someone Phil Jackson, who was instrumental in this project, and they're talking about calling it Jackson's Meadow. Also the potential of a PhD student to work on an environmental project. So we had 2 people, one from Hull University and one from Sheffield University, and they're taking that forward to see if we can get a student to work on this. We've also started an environmental group, and quite a few people are here that's involved in that tonight. So the first meeting held was after interested parties got in touch and said they wanted to take this forward. and we decided to start small and identify an area in each ward which was either for wildflowering or fruit trees. The second meeting took place last Friday, and there was an update on the progress we was making on that, and also a discussion around Bayton Orchard Day, allotment sites and tree planting. So the LAC has also been working with Bayton Village Development Trust, Crystal Peaks Church, officers and members of Bayton Orchard to deliver Bayton Orchard Apple Day that took place last Saturday, and this was well attended with over 500 people, which was amazing. The LAC will work with local groups to revive the Bayton Environmental Group and continue to support the Bayton Orchard so that events like this can continue throughout the year. I'm having an initial meeting next week with Shirebrook Valley to look at the possibility of dog fouling bins, signage, poo bags, that kind of thing. So we're going to trial it and see, because the Shirebrook Valley runs through all wards, so within the South East, so we're going to trial and see what that looks like. And then Althorpe Orchard, the LAC are working with the council partners regarding the clearance of an entrance to the fruit trees. As this has become severely overgrown, it's hoped that the fruit will be able to be used by the food banks, and also Food Works, I think, want to use some of the apples and things that's there as well. And so it'll help with the cost of living initiatives and help struggling families. And finally from me, officers started to develop the Sponsor a Street initiative. I'll be looking for pilot areas and members of the public within the South East who will be willing to be part of the scheme, and that's about litter picking and keeping your street clean. So we're working on that, so if anybody's interested in that and would like to come forward, then please let me know. So it's over to Mick now about the youth.
Thank you, Chair. Both myself and Councillor Denise Fox volunteered to be the leads on the conversation that we're trying to have with our young people in this part of the world. It's something that perhaps has been neglected not just by this LAC but by perhaps the council across the piece, that we don't talk to young people often enough and on basically a level playing field. So we had a meeting in September. It took the kids a little while to sort of unwind because they were faced with people that they didn't know and were a little in awe of. I've no idea why. I don't know why anybody would be in awe of me, but it took them just a little while to unwind, and we had a conversation about the sorts of things that bother them, and some of them are the sorts of stuff that bother you and I. It's like feeling safe on the streets, and whether they're going to have a job, or whether their mum and dad can actually afford to pay the bills. Ordinary stuff, just the same as we do. But what we did get them to actually talk about specifically about their lives was the lack of youth provision in the area, and the fact that there is no sixth form provision either in this part of the world. You may remember that some years ago a decision was made at governmental level to scrap sixth forms, but unfortunately it sort of only got part way across the city, and then the closures stopped because certain schools in other parts of the city wouldn't close their sixth forms. So they've got sixth forms and we haven't, and that really isn't very fair. So that's something that we need to deal with. And I should say I am also the co-chair of the Children and Families Policy Committee. So it's quite apt that that was one of the reasons why I volunteered to do the work with the kids. So I'm going to take the issues that they raised with us to that policy committee and see if we can get anything moving on them. And the final one that they brought up was disruption to their studies because of COVID. And a lot of them have suffered dearly because of that. And it's something that, frankly, that we know how important education is full stop, but these days it's probably more important than ever And a lot of them have really lost out over the last couple of years, and we need to do something about it. There are measures in place, but from what they're saying, they're working, but not in the manner that was expected. Thank you, Chair.
So it's now over to Denise Fox, Councillor Denise Fox.
Thank you, Karen. During the summer, the Councillor Karen and Brian, the Burley wards, we decided to put some money into the youth during the 6-week holidays, and we took it from our ward pot to see how it would work. And we got Uri Rennie and Sheffield City Trust to come along, and they delivered us 2 sessions a week during the 6-week holidays. We found this to be a huge success. We visited them a couple of times, didn't we? And we saw that not only different ages were joining in, the parents and grandparents were joining in as well. Because what they were saying to us is that often children are with grandparents during 6-week holidays, they're not with their friends. So this gave them the opportunity to come out and mix with others. And our youth workers engaged with them and got them playing all sorts of things. So as well as bringing some food, they brought some fruit and cheese and water, which they realising that some of the children get school meals and obviously miss out when it's summertime. So following on from this, we've got £10,000 that we've allocated to the South East for youth provision. We're looking to bring Uri back. We're meeting with him in the next week to look at what we can do and bring it out further to the other wards. And look at what we can do during the winter, because obviously we haven't got the weather. So we've been working with Crystal Peaks, who maybe offer something there for us. But it's all out there, and I see that we've got some youth in the audience. So if they've got some ideas, we are around afterwards, and we'll welcome any ideas that you want to bring to us. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the end of all our formal business now. Officers, like I say, so we've got AMA, Housing, Police, S20 Food Bank, Parks and Countryside, Income Management Unit, Food Works, Highways and your ward councillors will all be at desks and tables either in here or in the room next door, and please feel free to go and ask them all the questions that you want to, and just want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I hope you found it useful. Okay, thanks.